Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that there was need for upgrades and whatnot that were necessary for the, I believe, downtown Minneapolis, the Target Center. And
Yeah, those were approved.
Yeah, and the needs weren't really necessary here because we've got a newer facility. I think if you were able to divide these teams up and somehow make that happen, you know, it would be a great thing. Maybe St. Paul does. They cater to two of the teams, and then Minneapolis caters to two of the teams. The concerts, you know, we've got the facilities now for the concerts. Maybe because Minneapolis has a lot of other things going that the St. Paul location doesn't, maybe we want to try and attract the concerts at our facilities here in St. Paul. We need to do that, and I think it's important because our city, as the capital city, needs to thrive, and we need to bring the business into St. Paul, and that's for sure.
But I guess I'd have to ask you, there's a, and I've been talking about this in the show for a while now. There's a powerhouse block that's out there. It really controls most of the decisions that are run through the state assemblage, and that happens to be the Anoka-Hennepin group. Doesn't matter if you're talking about school district or you're talking about as the city, and it actually stretches out to Maple Grove and that, because of that's their reach as far as it goes. And you have all that power that is sitting with them. How can you compete against them with the problems, especially with St. Paul not even being able to tie up with Washington County or any of its suburbs to create an even similar block? You got to realize right now, when we're talking about the two biggest numerically, you're talking about Anoka and Hennepin, and then St. Paul is like number 4 in it, because I think Rochester's or St. Cloud's number 3 right now. So we've got a real problem when we're trying to get things passed that would aid the city, but also aid the state, because of this block has really been eating up all the financing for outstate projects as well. Should we be, would you be looking at maybe talking with outstate cities to see if you could align yourself with them to at least be able to have some equality with the Minneapolis-Hennepin block?
Well, I believe it's important that we open our eyes and our minds to everything, all options right now. We're in a position where the economy is very difficult and things are tough for everybody, and I think across the board everybody needs to work together. The reality is funding can sometimes be difficult to come by, and when you have bigger amounts of funding that can be necessary for some of these projects, yeah, we need to work together. And again, there's the bottom line: opening your mind up and thinking what can be best for all. I'm not going to limit myself to just saying I'm going to work for people in St. Paul. I want to work with Minneapolis and listen to what they have. And I think there's a definite a fit that can happen where it can be a benefit for both cities. You know, we are the Twin Cities, so let's do things together and let's both thrive. We live together, and that's what has to happen. I mean, people have to work together, live together, and if we do that, everybody will be happy.
Let's kind of go back to the education issue, because
Yep.
when you talked about the gap between blacks and whites, particularly in Minnesota,
Yep.
being the worst, yeah, because I remember reading the Ramsey County study that came out. How would you address that? Keep in mind, you don't control the schools like you would in, say, Chicago or Los Angeles. The mayor doesn't control the schools. In New York, they do. What would you do? What would be kind of some of your initiatives to help close that achievement gap?
Well, I definitely believe the mayor can be involved in that. You know, the St. Paul School Board they've got a huge task, and there's an undertaking there that they have to do. But the dollars that we're spending, when I look at the return on investment, I just don't see the return, and that's not acceptable to me. As mayor, I believe there's a lot of data out there that's available, so we can start looking at different options, different ideas to give these kids the incentive that they need to, when they go to school, that they feel safe, that they feel love, and I guess obviously they have to feel encouraged, and that's the big thing. These children nowadays, I mean, I see kids having kids, and that's part of the problem. And how do we stop that? That's a whole different issue. But it really does all begin with kids and teaching our children and giving them the tools that they need to go out and survive and thrive. When we have, you know, lack of, you know, points between blacks and kids of color, blacks and whites at 45% for math, and then 20, I think the gap is 20% for reading. That's just not acceptable. You know, maybe the class sizes need to be smaller, and I think that's a big thing. How do we get to that point? Well, if I was the mayor, I would try and figure that out, and I'd try to make it happen. Smaller class sizes mean more personal contact with the children, and they have to be touched daily, and they have to feel that they can be heard. And then when they do well, they have to be encouraged, and they have to be loved. It all starts with our kids. If we want this to be the best city in the world, this is what it's all about, and I can't emphasize that enough. So if I'm the mayor, we are going to talk, and I will make things happen. You know, I might not make a lot of people happy. I might step on some toes, but let me tell you, we will get the job done.
You know, I grew up in St. Paul before I moved out here to Maplewood, and the one thing that I brought with me was the point that the one thing that I loved about St. Paul when I was young was that the school district and the park group had many times worked to improve the schools and the parks together, because they realized there was only a limited amount of land and a limited amount of parks that were out there, and really it was the same customers using both of those. Mm-hmm. So what they did when I was there, in this case it was Frost Lake Elementary that's out on the east side of St. Paul, was the Park Service had the land around the school, and they actually built a nice adult type gymnasium setup so that they would have an outbuilding that they would run the sections of the school after school hours for Park Service, and then during the day the school would get to use all those facilities when most people were busy at their jobs and had no need for it. So basically they were able to then, with the limited funds they had, actually create a much better facilities. And I think these type of synergies are something we have to look at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that the schools definitely have to have a nice facility. They need to have a comfortable facility, a safe facility for the kids and the teachers. And then the parks, if there's a playground close by, that's important. Kids have to have some place where they can go out and obviously burn off some energy, because they do have a lot of energy. I've got twin girls and I love them, and I tell you right now, they mean everything, and if I could do anything, we wouldn't leave one child behind. Every child will have an opportunity in St. Paul to survive and do as well as they can do. And it does not matter the color, the race. It's just important that every child does succeed and does very, very well. So as far as working with our kids and our families, we need to do that. I think that the existing school system, they've done some good things. I've seen a few programs that are beneficial, but I think there can be more done. I think the resources need to be known so that parents aren't confused. They need to understand the different options that are available. We have a lot of different special education requirements that I don't think people even have a handle on. And those things have to be very, very out there and open for people to understand and take and benefit from. Kids are everything, and that's where it all starts. So if I can't emphasize anything enough, we need to start with our kids, educate every child, and give every child the chance to be the best they can be and love them. So.